Hello, it's Jim Hutchens for the Jerusalem Connection Truth Report for this week. We're returning to Romans 9 through 11, and we're taking a look at these three chapters because these are God's definitive words, last words, if you will, certainly words in the New Testament concerning Israel and the Jews. And we're doing this to counteract the heresy, and I don't use that term loosely. It is a heresy, namely the heresy of Palestinian replacement theology, which is to say, the Palestinians would say that their occupation, longevity, occupation, living in the land, that takes precedent, that precedes, that trumps the promises of God by decreed covenant that the land belongs to Israel. So this passage, Romans 9 through 11, will help clarify that and put the lie to the blasphemous heresy of Palestinian replacement theology. The last time we were together on this passage, we looked at Romans 9:30, and I want to just go over this briefly again. Romans 9:30 through the end of the chapter. It says, "What shall we say then? That the Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness have attained it, a righteousness that is by faith." They've received righteousness by believing God and His promises. "But Israel, who pursued a law of righteousness, has not attained it." And why not? Because they pursued it not by faith, but as if it were by works. In other words, they felt if they kept the laws, they strictly kept the laws, they could attain to the righteousness that God required. No one can do that. That is an impossibility for fallen man to do. He goes on to say they stumbled over the stumbling stone. Now that's a metaphor for a person. As it is written, "See, I lay in Zion a stone that causes men to stumble, and a rock that makes them fall, and the one who trusts in Him," the stumbling block, the one who trusts in Him will never be put to shame. Now that's a quote from Isaiah 18:14 and from Isaiah chapter 28, verse 16. I want to take a look at the passage in Isaiah 8, beginning at verse 13. Notice who is speaking. "And the Lord Almighty, Yahweh Almighty, is the one you are to regard as holy. He is the one you are to fear. He is the one you are to dread. And He will be a sanctuary for both houses of Israel. He will be a stone. He will be a stone that causes men to stumble." He will. Yahweh will. Now, Paul says that the stumbling block refers to Jesus. How do they bring together Yahweh and Jesus? Go on, I'm going on. "Stone that causes men to stumble, a rock that makes them fall, and for the people of Jerusalem He will be a trap and a snare. Many of them will stumble. They will fall and be broken. They will be snared and captured. Bind up the testimony and the seal, and seal up the law among my disciples. I will wait for Yahweh. I will wait for Yahweh, who is hiding His face from the house of Israel presently, but not forever. I will put my trust in Him." In who? In Yahweh. Now when we come back to Paul's statement, he is saying the stumbling block to the Jews is Jesus. But when we look at the passage that this is quoted from in the Old Testament, it doesn't mention Jesus, it mentions Yahweh. What's the connection between Yahweh and Jesus? The big stumbling block, the big concern for the Jews. We turn to Philippians chapter 2, we read this. Verse 9, "God highly exalted Him," that is Jesus, "highly exalted Him and has given Him a name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow and every tongue would confess." Every knee should bow in heaven and on earth, and every tongue should confess that Jesus the Messiah is Yahweh. It says Lord in the English translation, but the English translation, Lord, has reference to Yahweh of the Old Testament. Every tongue will confess that Jesus the Messiah is Yahweh, to the glory of God the Father. Jesus is the incarnation, the fleshing out, the coming to life on earth as a man of Yahweh. He's a stumbling block at this point, but not forever. The name of Yahweh will be a prominent aspect of the end time scenario that takes place. It's not prominent now. Jews won't use the name. Messianic Jews don't use the name. Gentiles, for the most part, don't know it. But I have a sense that the Gentiles will be the one that really exalt and proclaim his name. Malachi 1 verse 11 talks about God saying, my name will be great. Yahweh says, my name will be great among the Gentiles. Well, it's not great among the Gentiles. So there remains to be the work of God's Spirit in the world among his people. But be assured of this: every knee will bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus the Messiah is Yahweh. And that's the truth